They say the truth sets you free. That is a lie. In interstellar politics, the truth is just a death sentence. The truth is that humanity is weak. The truth is that our shields can withstand exactly 3 shots from a Vrak-class plasma cannon. The truth is that our entire defensive fleet was reduced to burning scrap metal in the orbit of Mars in less than 6 hours. If we told the Vrak Imperium the truth, the human race would cease to exist before the sun went down. We are the youngest civilization on the galactic stage. We crawled out of our cradle, looked up at the stars, and shouted, "Hello!" And the universe, in all its Darwinian cruelty, answered back. The Vrak Imperium doesn't hate us. They don't hate the ants they crush beneath their boots. They simply need living space. And Earth, with its liquid oceans and rich biosphere, is prime real estate. They do not negotiate. They conquer. They conquered Centauri. They burned Sirius. And now, their black triangular ships, the World Breakers, are parked in the moon's orbit, blocking out the light of our own sun. We tried to fight. God knows we tried. We launched every nuclear warhead we had. Their shields absorbed the radiation like it was a summer breeze. We sent our best pilots. They were swept away like dust. Now, only one option remains. The Samson option. But we don't have Samson's strength. We cannot pull the pillars of the temple down upon our enemies. So, we have to do something that humans do better than any other species in the galaxy. Better than the Vrak, who are obsessed with honor. Better than the Ilari, who are obsessed with logic. We are going to lie. We are going to look into the eyes of an alien god of war and convince him that we have a gun pointed at his head. A gun that doesn't exist. Welcome to Apex Sci-Fi. This isn't a story about heroes with laser swords. This is the story of the most dangerous poker game in the history of the universe. Buckle up. The bluff starts now. Chapter 1. The Architecture of Deceit. Geneva was gone. The crater where the city used to be was still glowing with residual radiation from last week's orbital bombardment. United Earth Central Command had moved to Bunker 4, a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. The air down there was recycled, thick, and smelled of cold sweat and burnt coffee. In the main war room, the mood wasn't strategic. It was funereal. Admiral Hackett, a man who looked like he had aged 50 years in the last 50 days, slammed his fist onto the metal table. "They gave us an ultimatum, Mr. President," Hackett growled, his voice hoarse from shouting orders to fleets that no longer responded. "Warlord Zarkoth demands unconditional surrender in 48 hours. If we refuse, they initiate the glass protocol. They will bombard the Earth's crust until the surface turns into molten glass. Total extinction." The president, sitting at the head of the table with his head in his hands, didn't answer. What was there to answer? "Can we launch the colony ships?" the defense minister suggested. "Try to run the blockade? Save a few thousand." "They have gravitational sensors," Hackett snapped. "Nothing bigger than a golf ball leaves the atmosphere without being vaporized. We are trapped in a box, and they are pouring gasoline on us." It was at that moment that Elias Kael spoke. Elias wasn't a soldier. He didn't wear medals. He wore a cheap gray suit that was 2 sizes too big now that he had lost 20 pounds from stress. He was the head of exopolitics. A fancy title for the guy who tries to talk to aliens who want to eat us. "We cannot win a kinetic war," Elias said softly. His voice was calm, a terrifying contrast to the panic in the room. "Physics is against us. Economics is against us. But psychology might be in our favor." Hackett scoffed. "Psychology? You want to put Zarkoth on a couch and ask him about his mother? He is a 9-foot monster with bulletproof skin, Kael." "He is a conqueror," Elias corrected, standing up. He walked to the holographic projector. "And what does every conqueror fear? It isn't death. It's losing what he has already conquered. The Vrak Imperium spans 12 solar systems. They are rich. They are powerful. They have a lot to lose. Elias placed a silver briefcase on the table. Gentlemen, I present to you Project Nemesis. He clicked the latches open. Inside, there were no warheads. There were no unstable isotopes. There was a polished metal cylinder, surrounded by pulsing blue LEDs and complex copper coils that spun silently, suspended in a magnetic field. It looked like the most advanced, dangerous piece of technology humanity had ever built. Hackett narrowed his eyes. What does it do? Absolutely nothing, Elias replied. The silence in the room was absolute. Pardon? The president raised his head. It's a glorified paperweight, Elias explained, tapping the cylinder. Inside this is the motor from a food processor and some reconfigured Christmas lights. But it emits a very specific Hawking radiation signature. A fake signature, of course. You've gone insane, the minister whispered. We are on the brink of annihilation and you bring us a toy? It's not a toy, Elias said, his eyes shining with a manic intensity. It's a story. We are going to tell Zarkoth that this is a stellar fusion inhibitor. We are going to tell him that if his heart stops, or if Earth is attacked, this device sends a tachyonic signal that destabilizes the core of the sun. Not just our sun. Any sun tuned to the frequency. Elias paused for dramatic effect. We are going to tell him that we have hidden one of these bombs in every solar system he has conquered. We are going to tell him that if Earth falls, the Vrak Imperium goes dark. Forever. We are going to threaten to delete the stars. Hackett looked at the briefcase, then at Elias. That is insane. The Vrak have state-of-the-art scanners. They will know it's a fake. They have scanners that detect known weapons, Elias argued. They look for antimatter. They look for fusion. They do not look for something that theoretical physics says is impossible. Because they are logical. They would never invent a suicide weapon that destroys the user along with the enemy. It is illogical. But us. We are humans. We are the species that invented mutually assured destruction in the 1960s. They expect us to be crazy. Let's use that reputation. The president looked at the spinning device. The blue light reflected in his tired eyes. And who is going to deliver this message? The president asked. Who is going to walk onto the enemy flagship, unarmed, carry this lie, and keep their heart rate low enough not to be detected by their biosensors? Elias Kael closed the briefcase with a soft click. He straightened his tie. I will, Elias said. I am a professional liar, Mr. President. It's what I do. The preparation for departure was a mix of stage engineering and ritual suicide. Earth's best scientists worked all night not to build a weapon, but to build a prop. They lined the briefcase with lead and gold. They added particle emitters that did nothing but confuse sensors. Elias spent the hours memorizing scripts. Not technical data, but one-liners. He needed to look arrogant. He needed to look like a man who has his finger on the trigger of the apocalypse. Remember, the team psychologist said as Elias put on his pressure suit. The Vrak are predators. If you show fear, they attack. If you sweat, they smell the stress pheromones. You have to believe the lie. You are not carrying a broken toaster. You are carrying the death of God in your right hand. I know, Elias said, but his hands were shaking. He curled them into fists to hide the tremor. The transport ship ascended. It was a small diplomatic shuttle, painted white, unarmed. It looked like a fly buzzing toward the mouth of a shark. Above them, the Vrak fleet was a wall of black metal. The flagship, the Sun Eater, was 10 kilometers long. It was a monument to war. Human transport, a guttural voice blasted over the radio, translated by AI. You are cleared to dock. Prepare to be scanned. If we detect weapons, you will be vaporized. Elias looked at the briefcase on his lap. No weapons, he whispered to himself. Just words. The shuttle shuddered as it entered the landing hangar of the alien ship. The door hissed open. The artificial gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's. The air smelled metallic, like dried blood and ozone. Elias picked up the briefcase. He took a deep breath, holding the air in his lungs for a second, and then stepped out. Before him, in an honor guard formation, stood 200 Vrak warriors. 9 feet tall. Natural chitinous armor reinforced with ceramic plates. They snarled in unison as his boot hit the deck. The sound vibrated in Elias's bones. At the end of the corridor, sitting on a throne made of the skulls of other species, was Zarkoth. Elias began to walk. One step at a time. Don't think about Earth burning. Don't think about your family in the bunker. Think about the game. Think about the bluff. I am Ambassador Elias Kael, he said, projecting his voice to sound bored. And I am here to accept your surrender. Chapter 2. A gun to the head of God. Silence is a weapon. Elias Kael knew this. When he announced that he was there to accept the Vrak surrender, he didn't elaborate. He didn't stutter. He simply stood there, in the center of the alien bridge, surrounded by 200 creatures that could rip his arms off like wet paper, and he waited. The silence stretched for 10 seconds. Then 20. The Vrak warriors shifted uneasily. They were used to fear. They were used to sobbing, begging, or the desperate screaming of defiance. They were not used to a small, soft mammal in a gray suit looking bored. Then, a sound erupted from the throne. A dry, rasping noise that sounded like grinding stones. Zarkoth was laughing. The warlord stood up. He was even bigger than the intel reports suggested. 9 feet of muscle and armored hate. He stepped down from the dais, the deck plates shuddering under his weight. He walked until he was inches from Elias. The heat radiating from his body was suffocating. He smelled of ammonia and old copper. Surrender, Zarkoth rumbled. His voice didn't need a translator. The ship's speakers boomed the English words with a metallic distortion. You are the representative of the dirt ball below. Your cities are burning. Your fleet is ash. And you come to me with jokes. Elias didn't flinch. He forced himself to look up into the yellow, slit pupils of the alien. It is not a joke, great Zarkoth, Elias said, keeping his voice level. It is a mathematical courtesy. I am giving you a chance to save your empire before I am forced to delete it. Zarkoth leaned in. A long, black tongue flicked out, tasting the air near Elias's face. I smell your cortisol, human, the warlord whispered. You reek of fear. Your heart beats like a trapped bird. You are terrified. Of course I am, Elias lied, leaning into the truth to sell the deception. I am standing next to a device that could turn this entire sector into a supernova. If my pulse wasn't racing, I would be a robot. I'm scared of dropping it. Zarkoth straightened up, looking at the silver briefcase Elias clutched in his hand. A bomb. The warlord scoffed. We have scanned you. That box contains no antimatter. No nuclear fissile material. It has a tiny energy signature, smaller than a flashlight. You threaten me with a flashlight. This, Elias said, lifting the case slightly, is a quantum entanglement initiator. It doesn't contain the explosion, Zarkoth. It contains the trigger. Elias walked over to a small metal table near the center of the room and set the case down. He opened it. The blue lights pulsed. The copper coils spun silently. To a physicist, it looked like junk. To a warlord who didn't understand human madness, it looked like a mystery. Do you know why humanity barely fought back? Elias asked, turning to face the room. Do you know why we let you burn Mars? Why we let you blockade the moon? He paused, making eye contact with the guards. Because we were calibrating. Calibrating what? Zarkoth demanded, his amusement turning into irritation. The frequency, Elias said. You see, Zarkoth, we figured out a long time ago that we couldn't beat you in a fistfight. You are stronger. Your ships are better. So, we decided to change the game. We developed the stellar inhibitor. Elias pointed at the holographic map of the galaxy floating above the throne. He pointed to the Vrak home system. Vrakos Prime, Elias said. A red giant star. Beautiful. Stable. But fragile. We sent stealth probes there 50 years ago, Elias lied. Tiny things. Undetectable. They drilled into the core of your sun. They didn't do anything. They just sat there. Waiting. Zarkoth growled. Lies. Our sensors would have seen them. Your sensors look for metal, Elias countered. These were made of silicate. Glass. Invisible to radar. And they are quantum-locked to this device. Elias placed his hand over the spinning cylinder. This is a dead man's switch, Zarkoth. It is linked to my biometric signature. It is linked to the strategic network of Earth. If the city of New York is destroyed, the signal goes out. If I die, the signal goes out. If you try to vaporize me, the signal goes out. And what does the signal do? The warlord sneered. It disrupts the magnetic field of your sun, Elias said softly. It induces a coronal mass ejection event. A solar flare so large it will strip the atmosphere off Vrakos Prime in 8 minutes. Your oceans will boil. Your cities will melt. Your history will be erased. Elias looked deep into the alien's eyes. You want Earth. Take it. Burn it to glass. But know this, the moment Earth dies, Vrakos dies with it. We will leave this universe together. The bridge fell silent. The guards looked at each other. The Vrak were warriors. They understood death. They understood sacrifice. But they also understood legacy. They fought to expand their empire, not to destroy it. You are bluffing, Zarkoth roared, slamming his fist into a console. Metal crunched. No species would build such a weapon. It is cowardly. It is madness. We are humans, Elias shouted back, his voice finally breaking the calm facade, channeling raw, genuine anger. We bombed our own cities in the 20th century just to prove a point. We created viruses that eat flesh. We are not honorable warriors, Zarkoth. We are spiteful, vindictive apes. Do not test our capacity for self-destruction. The outburst echoed in the cavernous room. Elias stood panting, his hand hovering over the device. I am authorized to offer you a treaty, Elias said, lowering his voice. You withdraw your fleet to the edge of the system. You lift the blockade. In exchange, we do not press the button. We keep your son alive. Zarkoth stared at the human. He was confused. His tactical computers couldn't analyze spite. His code of honor had no defense against a suicide bomber on a galactic scale. He looked at the briefcase. It looked pathetic. Small. But the human looked crazy enough to be telling the truth. Scientist Vral. Zarkoth barked. A slender, hunched Vrak wearing sensory goggles scuttled forward. Scan the device, Zarkoth ordered. Tell me what is inside. Elias's heart stopped. This was the moment. The scientists on Earth said the particle emitters would confuse the scanners. But if they failed? If the scanner just said, electric motor? Elias stepped back. Be careful, Vral, Elias warned. The casing is tamper-sensitive. If you hit it with an active scanning beam that is too high frequency, it might interpret that as an attack. And then, boom. Vral hesitated. He held his scanner up. His 3-fingered hand trembled. He looked at the warlord. He looked at the device. He looked at the crazy ape. Vral turned on the scanner. Chapter 3. The Anomaly. The universe held its breath. In the command center of the Sun Eater, the only sound was the low hum of the ventilation and the spinning of the copper coils inside Elias's briefcase. Vral, the Vrak scientist, held the scanner steady. A fan of green laser light washed over the device. On Earth, in the underground bunkers, engineers were praying. They had rigged the box with a polonium 210 emitter and a set of high-powered neodymium magnets designed to scramble sensitive electronics. It was a magic trick. A sleight of hand designed to confuse a sensor array worth billions of credits. The scanner in Vral's hand chirped. Then it whined. Then it began to emit a low, dissonant grinding noise. Vral tapped the screen. The holographic display fractured, showing impossible spikes in gravitational waves. "My lord," Vral whispered, stepping back as if the briefcase had just hissed at him. "The readings are chaotic." Zarkoth leaned forward on his throne. "Define chaotic." "It is masking its core," Vral stammered. "I detect a localized distortion field. The sensors cannot penetrate the casing, but I am picking up trace amounts of Hawking radiation and something else. A tachyonic echo." Vral looked at Elias with wide, terrified eyes. "The device is active, my lord. It is pinging a subspace frequency every 0.4 seconds. It is talking to something." Elias forced himself not to exhale in relief. The magnets worked. The scanner was interpreting the magnetic interference as a tachyon signal. "It's talking to the sun," Elias said, his voice cold. "It's checking to see if I'm still alive. If that ping stops, the sun answers." Zarkoth stood up. He walked down the steps of the dais, his heavy armor clanking. He towered over Elias. The Warlord reached out a massive, clawed hand. He didn't touch the box. He grabbed Elias by the throat. He lifted the human diplomat off the ground. Elias's feet kicked the air. The pressure on his windpipe was immense. His vision began to spot with white lights. "You lie," Zarkoth growled, bringing Elias's face inches from his own. "You are a small, weak creature. You do not have the will to destroy a star. You love your life too much." Elias clawed at the alien's armored wrist, gasping for air. He couldn't speak. He could only stare. He had to sell it. He had to make the monster believe. Elias stopped struggling. He let his arms drop to his sides. He stared into the yellow slit eyes of the Warlord and he smiled. It was a broken, gasping, terrifying smile. Zarkoth paused. He expected begging. He expected tears. "Why do you smile?" Zarkoth roared, loosening his grip just enough for Elias to speak. "Because," Elias wheezed, "if you crush my throat, my heart stops. And if my heart stops, you burn." Elias pointed a shaking finger at the box on the table. "Do it," Elias rasped. "Squeeze. Let's see who dies first. Me, or your empire." Zarkoth stared at the human. He looked for the deception. He looked for the fear. But all he saw in Elias's eyes was the madness of a species that had spent 5,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. Zarkoth realized something that terrified him. This creature doesn't care about winning. He only cares about making sure I lose. The Warlord dropped Elias. Elias hit the deck hard, coughing, massaging his bruised throat. Zarkoth turned to his guards. "Back away from the device," he ordered. He looked at the hologram of Earth. Then at the hologram of his own home system, Vrakos Prime. He calculated the odds. If the human was lying, Zarkoth would win a planet. If the human was telling the truth, Zarkoth would lose everything. It was a bad bet. "You are insane," Zarkoth muttered. "A species of madman." "We prefer determined," Elias croaked, straightening his tie. "Do we have a deal?" Chapter 4. The Walk Away. Negotiating the ceasefire took 20 minutes. Zarkoth didn't sign a peace treaty. That would be a sign of weakness. Instead, he agreed to a strategic repositioning. "We will withdraw to the outer rim of this system," Zarkoth declared, sitting back on his throne, looking sullen. "We will observe. If we find proof that this weapon is a fake, we will return. And I will peel the skin from your body slowly." "Fair enough," Elias said. He closed the silver briefcase. The blue lights vanished. The spinning stopped. Just remember, Elias added, picking up the case. The batteries last for 1,000 years. Don't blink. The walk back to the shuttle was the longest kilometer of Elias's life. His legs felt like jelly. His throat throbbed where the warlord had grabbed him. He walked past the 200 warriors. They hissed at him, clicking their mandibles. They wanted to kill him. They could smell his vulnerability now. But they let him pass. Because he was the man who held the sun hostage. Elias stepped into the white shuttle. The airlock cycled shut. As soon as the seal hissed, Elias collapsed. He dropped the briefcase. It clattered to the floor. The plastic casing cracked, revealing the cheap electric motor inside. He fell into the pilot's seat, shaking uncontrollably. He dry heaved. He cried. The adrenaline crash hit him like a physical blow. "Transport Alpha 1 to Earth Command," he whispered into the radio. "Status check." "Command here," Hackett's voice came through, tense. "We are reading movement. The Vrak fleet is breaking formation. They are turning engines. They are leaving orbit." Cheers erupted in the background of the radio channel. Screams of joy. "Elias?" Hackett asked. "What did you do?" Elias looked at the broken briefcase on the floor. "I told them a ghost story, Admiral," Elias whispered. "And they blinked." As the shuttle flew away from the Sun Eater, Elias looked out the viewport. The massive black ships were turning. They blocked the stars one last time, and then engaged their drives, streaking away into the dark. The sun shone down on Earth again. The cities were still burning. The dead were still dead. But the sky was clear. Humanity had survived. Not by strength. Not by technology. But because one man in a cheap suit had the audacity to look God in the eye and lie. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon isn't a laser or a bomb. It's a bluff. If you enjoyed this high-stakes poker game for the fate of the world, smash that like button. Comment below. Could you have held your breath while the warlord grabbed you? Subscribe for more stories from the edge of extinction. Peace is just a lie we agree to believe. End of recording.